Welcome to Ogles channel, thanks for watching today. Let's talk about the demo of Lies of P, because I went through the entire demo and my gosh, it is fantastic. Now, I was pretty excited like when Lies of P first got announced. I mean, it looked like a really great aesthetic, just a really good Bloodborne type game. But sometimes these games fall into the category of all flash and no meaning, or all flash and no substance. And so I was sort of worried about that one aspect of it. But now after playing the demo, all those worries are put to the side, because the demo is great combat, great atmosphere, great bosses, and just really separates itself from its inspiration of Bloodborne, and sort of basically paves its own road, or sets its own trail of what it wants to be in an action RPG. But even games that have all that in line sometimes still fall a little bit short, because they're missing out on some of that rich lore and some of the background story mythology that sometimes the Soulsborne games have. And I'm not saying like Lies of P is on the exact same level of like Bloodborne or Dark Souls, because those are like S-tier games and some of the best games of all time. But the story today, are crafting in Lies of P, it really is fantastic. And I love what they're doing here is they're taking the original story of Pinocchio and they're basically just turning a dark twist on it here. Essentially, Geppetto has created all of these puppets to do various tasks around the world. It would be like chimney sweeps or hotel staff or pretty much anything a puppet could do at the time. And the puppets, for some reason or another, have run amok. They've gone crazy, sort of possessed, and humanity has turned against the puppets and basically going to kill all puppets, good or bad, including puppets like Pinocchio. So he sets out his mission to find Geppetto to try to stop this essentially puppet plague. And there's all kinds of background lore throughout the game, because you're going to find like little, sort of like in Resident Evil, you find like little documents and you can read more about the lore, or you can find stuff on some of the items, sort of like in the Soulsborne games. And so there's all kinds of lore that you can discover outside the core story. But it's really intriguing that they're taking a classic story, turning it upon its head, making a dark fantasy out of it. But I really do think that's what's going to draw a lot of players in here, because it's a lore that's familiar, but it's not going to be the same. And so as you're going through the story, you're constantly looking for like little Easter eggs, little story plots, little hints of the original story and how it's going to relate to this dark retelling. Like I know, for example, like Jiminy Cricket is actually going to be like your guy, sort of like Navi was in Ocarina of Time, but he's going to be like way less annoying and actually pretty entertaining in some of his dialogue. You also have like one of the bosses who's going to be like a human donkey, and this is a reference back to Pleasure Island that Pinocchio went to, and one of the bad boys got turned into a donkey, and so it makes sense for him to be a boss inside the game. You also have like the little circus area that Pinocchio goes through in the book. He also goes through that in the game here as well. There's a book on the shelf at one point that they don't know the title of, but it tells the story of a boy who wanted to be human more than anything. You also have like the loading screen where it says, instead of loading, it says line, and Pinocchio's nose is basically the loading meter, and it continues to get further and further as it, he's basically lying. But there are so many Easter eggs and so many references to the original Pinocchio story, or even just the movie if you only seen the movie, inside this game. And so I think as you're playing through the game, part of the enjoyment of the lore is, like I said, you remember the core story, the basics of it, and you're seeing how it plays out in a dark fantasy, and it automatically pulls you more into what this game has to offer. So it has a great lore behind it. The atmosphere that goes along with that is fantastic. I mean, you have all these basically, I guess, Industrial Revolution era, probably not France, Italy I think is where it takes place. And so as you're journeying through the streets of Italy, I mean, it's completely desolate, it's been destroyed, basically from this revolt that's happening against the puppets, and you have all these demon-possessed puppets who are basically roaming the streets here, sort of like zombies. And I mean, it is a horrifying aesthetic. They nailed it like dead on here as far as like a great atmosphere. Yes, it's sort of pulling from like the ideas of Bloodborne a little bit, like the desolate streets of a similar era. However, like by using puppets acting like zombies, it creates its own horror aesthetic, and how it relates back to the core story of Pinocchio, fantastic. And so to me, it's like they took the inspiration of Bloodborne, put it with the lore of Pinocchio, and made it their own when it comes to creating a great horror action RPG. But it's not just simply the lore or the atmosphere and all that that's really great in this game. It sort of separates it from a normal Soulsborne. It's also the combat in this game. Yes, as you start up and you start playing it, if you've ever played a Soulsborne game, it's going to feel just like that. I mean, it's going to feel, you got your sword, you got your block, you got, even like when you're running, if you press the left trigger button, you actually do a jump just like you do in, I think it's Dark Souls 1. Man, they always mix like which jump is what in those games. But I think it's that one, where you run and you just simply press the control stick, and of course you make a little jump. It's the same thing they're doing in the Souls game, is the jumping in this game. And so even though the basics are going to be the same, there are so many little things you're going to do to separate it. For example, like your main weapon is going to be like a saber, and yes, you can get new ones and change it out, and you can upgrade it just like in pretty much any Soulsborne game. However, you can also like change the handles out and also the blades blades out, so you can sort of craft your own weapons in this system here. And also the weapon has a breakability meter, so there's like a durability on it. And yes, I know some of the Souls games had this as well, but in those games, like when the weapon broke, it would just broke and you go and repair it. And this game, when the weapon breaks, like that weapon is gone forever. Sort of like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. However, when your weapon is getting near to being destroyed, you can actually get out your grinder. You can basically sharpen your weapon back up, make it more durable again, and that weapon can continue on. And so it adds an extra aspect to gameplay a little bit, and one more thing to sort of keep up with as you're going through all this combat. But your only weapon is not just your right-handed weapon, you also have essentially a left-handed weapon. And it's not like it's in Bloodborne, like you have just simply a pistol. You basically have this iron arm here, or robotic arm, and you can basically swap that out or put attachments on it to have different weapons throughout the game. It's almost more akin to like in Sekiro, how you can have like all these shinobi arts that you attach to your character, and you can do all these different special moves, you know, whether it's throwing out ninja stars or like firecrackers and such as that. That's basically what these attachments on your arm is going to do. So it's sort of like it's combining the aspect of Sekiro and Bloodborne together when it comes to what your left arm ability is going to be. And so this is unique for this game, and it separates itself a good bit from the normal fighting mechanics of a Soulsborne game. And sort of like the last two games that I did mention there, Sekiro and Bloodborne, where it's taken its inspiration from, this game is also going to focus on very fast and aggressive combat. Like in Bloodborne, when you got hit, if you attack the enemy fast enough, you gain some of your health back. So it basically encouraged you to be very aggressive inside the game. And this game also encourages aggression to a very high degree. For example, every weapon that you have has a special move, and the more aggressive you are in the combat, or the more you attack the enemy, the more that little aggression bar is going to grow, and then you get a special move to release by pressing triangle once you've got that bar all the way to the top, and it takes away a good portion of the enemy's health as you're going. And there's that little blue bar at the top of the screen that you probably see underneath the health and the stamina. And so you continue to want to fight inside the battle because you're always so close to unleashing that final death blow against the competitor there, and so you're going to want to get more aggressive throughout the battle. However, there's another reason to be aggressive throughout the battle, because essentially like your health replenishers, like your potions, I forgot what they're called in this game, it'll come to me, I'll probably put it at the bottom of the screen here, but like your blood vial or your Estus flask, once you run out of those, it's not over. You can actually gain those back by simply being aggressive and attacking the enemy. And so once all your Estus flasks are gone, you just simply continue to attack, and you watch the little meter go up, and when the meter gets all the way to the top, you regain one of your Estus flasks in order to replenish your health and continue to fight. So just when you think the battle is over because you're out of health and you're out of healing abilities, and you're just feeling really down on it, if you get in there and you just really blast away a few extra hits, you can get that healing back, you get a special move, and so it really does encourage the aggression in the game. And I like that, swapping that mechanic up for this game over some of the other Soulsborne clones that are out there. And it really just sort of paves the way on its own when it comes to the combat that it's built up. And I have to say, I like the combat a lot because I really do enjoy that replenishing of an Estus flask. Like I said, I know it's not called that. I'll put it down at the bottom of the screen. And I also really enjoy building up to get that special move inside the battles as well. But let's talk about the bosses in the game. There are 3 bosses that are given to us inside the demo. 2 are going to be your, big bosses that take up most of the arena, and the other one's going to be a 101 boss. And I think that they did it on purpose in the demo like this to sort of show you that not all the bosses are going to be just giant monster bosses. Sometimes they're going to be those individual fights. The first one's a giant clown, and halfway through the battle, he literally rips his own head off to make a weapon out of it. And so, I mean, it's got some horror elements to some of the bosses here. The last one's just a really creepy looking police puppet, and it's just, man, it just creeps away. His head rotates around. I mean, it's an intense battle, but the horror factor is definitely there. And the middle one, like I mentioned earlier in the review, is going to be a mad donkey, which is like a human donkey who's battling one-on-one against you. And as silly as it might sound, it's a Pinocchio reference, and it really does fit in well inside the game as you're playing through it. He's the one you fight right before you can rescue Geppetto along your route here. But the bosses are very individualistic. They don't feel like just clones from other games, and they also have very much of a connection to the lore that they're creating for the game itself. And so I can't wait to see what they do with the rest of the bosses. I don't know how long this game is going to actually be, because if it was like 3-4 hours just for the demo, man, this could be like a 30-40 hour game, which would be absolutely awesome, and I'm totally down for that. But one more thing I want to talk about that's really cool about this game, speaking of the boss fights, the music in the boss battles, of course, is fantastic. It's well orchestrated. I don't know who does the music for it, but my favorite music on the soundtrack so far is actually when you're in the hub world, which is like the hotel itself. And man, fantastic music, just very ambient. It reminds me a little bit of like, I know it's not the same, but sort of like how Majula does as far as like in Dark Souls 2. It gives me that same feeling. Like I can sort of have this music playing in the background, just sort of, you know, chilling to it for, you know, a long term. And so I really do enjoy the music, at least for the hub world, and the bosses are well done at the same time, but the hub world's definitely my favorite so far. But overall, I am very excited for Lies of P. I know I've only gone through the demo, which is 3 or 4 hours, but if they keep up that same momentum for the rest of the game, this could be one of the best Soulsborne games on the market, because it really does just sort of blaze its own trail when it comes to pretty much all aspects. Combat, atmosphere, lore. I mean, they've really got all the ingredients here to be a AAA game on its own. And I think that's what they're charging for a price too. I think it is a AAA price. I think it's $60 or $70. I'm not sure on that. It comes out on September 19th. And I think if you pre-order, you get like a few extra little bonuses. But I mean, that's digital pre-order, and I'm not really a big fan of digital pre-orders in general. And so I'll just probably pick up a physical copy when it comes out. But what are your thoughts? Have you gone through the demo of Lies of P? What do you think about the demo? Do you think it's one of the best Soulsborne games out there? Did you think it fell flat in a few areas? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check my other videos listed up above. And go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.